Hi guys, welcome to our next webinar. Let's wait a couple of seconds so everyone could join. We are streaming live to two platforms, so we will be streaming to YouTube and Facebook. I'm gonna post you a link to the lesson materials, so you could start, so you can download them. And by the way, you can see a demo of the page which we're gonna build today within this webinar. So as always, I'm gonna try to keep it short and essential for you. So my goal is to keep it within an hour, the lesson, the learning part, and then after that, I will be happy to answer all your questions. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and I will try to answer them either directly or after the learning part if they're not gonna be related directly to what we're gonna be talking about. Okay, so just a few more seconds because I see that there are more people joining at the moment. Hello TJ, hello Nati, hello Dejan, hey Ganesh. Ganesh is asking if fact that he missed few past webinars will affect it. No, not really. I mean, I assume that you have like basics of HTML and CSS. That's good enough. And for those of you who just joined and skipped the previous one, don't worry. You can always watch the previous one on our YouTube channel. So we are recording, and we also gonna record that webinar for you as well. So we will have this one recorded. Okay, guys. I see that the most people have joined already, so we will slowly get started. So if you want to follow with me, just go to our GitHub repository. Hello, Alice. Go to our GitHub repository. I just posted a link on the chat, and either download the lesson files by clicking here, or we can just clone it. I just made another tutorial for you yesterday, and we're gonna publish it probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow on how to use Git. So I'm gonna start with I'm gonna open Git bash here in the place where I want to download my files, and I'm gonna say git clone and this URL which I've got from here, and press enter. So that's gonna clone our repository. Aaron is asking about the YouTube channel. So this is our YouTube channel. I'm just pasting it. Dariusz is asking, am I Polish? Yes, I'm Polish. And by the way, we have a Polish webinars every Wednesday. So on Tuesday, we are doing this in English, and Wednesdays are in Polish. Hello from Dubai, from Stanley. Hey, good to have you here, Stanley. Okay, guys. So let's get to the learning part. So I just clone the repository here, Bootstrap tutorial for beginners. By the way, here you have a tutorial lesson, so you have an examples there. Vladimir, hello from Delft. Hello, Vladimir. I've been living in Amsterdam for 4 years, so not that far from you. Okay, guys. So today we're gonna learn about Bootstrap, but before we start learning some Bootstrap code, some Bootstrap essentials like Bootstrap Grid and so on, let's start with a point: why do we actually need Bootstrap nowadays? So, well, in 2020, people browse web and website and application in many different ways. So mostly, I believe like 60-70% of traffic is being generated through mobile devices, but there are still, of course, a huge chunk of traffic which comes from tablet, which comes from desktops. So in the past, some of the websites have been using like two different version of the website, and actually if you look at the Facebook, it's still doing that, right? So if you open a Facebook not from application on your smartphone but just in the web browser, you're gonna see that it's opening like m.facebook and so on. So it seems like have a two platforms, one for the mobile devices and one for a desktop. And of course you can imagine that this ain't efficient, right? So it's not the most efficient way. It's not the most efficient way to maintain this that way. Therefore, developers come up with something which we called responsive web design. So responsive web design is something which allows us to create web pages which are scalable, and they will automatically fit to the browser, to the size which we are currently using. So we can think of this that our web page should behave like water. So if you pour water into a small glass, into the tall glass, it will be like Titan, but it will be Titan, but it will be taller. And on the other hand, if you pour the same water into the white glass, it will adjust to the size. So this is how we this is the same way we should our website should create. So if we make our screen which we are using to watch it smaller, it should change the way it appears to be smaller. So let's just do a small example here. So I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call it working. So this will be the place where I'm gonna be creating my stuff, and I'm gonna open this in Visual Studio Code. So let me open this one and let me quickly create some new file. I'm gonna call it index.html, and I'm gonna close it for you and increase the font size so you could better see it. And let's just create a very, very basic web page. So I just prepared it before. I'm gonna paste it. So as you can see, there's nothing special in here. It just it has just one image and one paragraph, right? So let's open this. This file in a web browser. Let's open here. Okay. And now let's gonna see how this website will look like on a desktop itself. So using developer tools. So if you go to the settings here, and then more tools, developer tools, we are able to emulate mobile devices. So if you're gonna click this icon here, it will show us our web page the way it would be rendered on a different device, and we can choose which device to use, right? So we have an iPhone X, for example, here. There's a question from Marcus: how do you get VS Code onto the folder context menu? Basically, it goes, it should be installed by default like this, and if it didn't work for you, just give me your operating system, and I will try to help you after the learning part. So I will get back to you after the learning part. Okay, guys. So this is how our website would look on the iPhone X if we were to open it right now. So if we zoom to see the picture, you can see the text becomes like unreadable because we need to scroll left and right. So that's how so how we can make our web page responsive. So in order to let our browser know that we wish to create a page which is responsive, we need to add this this meta value. So this meta name viewport, then and it says that what we want is that we want to have the width of our website to be equal to the device width. So every time we you know, open a website in some device like tablet, like you know, mobile phone, it will use as a default width for our page the width of the device, right? So the different devices have different resolution, and it will automatically use that. And it says that we want to have initial scale 1.0, so it means that we don't have we don't want to have zoom you know, on that by default. So just the normal size. So let's see what's gonna happen to our web page now. If I'm gonna refresh, I should save it first. So now, as you can see, so now as you can see, our image become so-called responsive. So it filled the whole message. There is a question from Aaron. I'm a bit confused for the file the Bootstrap tutorial git repo referring to, it's called JS tutorial. I'm not sure what you are talking about. Please check this link I'm just sending right now. So it's Bootstrap tutorial for beginners, and this is the one which we are working, because you might be checking the previous one. So the last webinar was on JavaScript, so maybe that's a little bit confusing, but I just prepared a new repository for today's lesson. Okay, guys. So this is first thing which we how to make this this page responsive. But of course, well, there is much more we could and we have to do in order to make sure that our web page looks good on different sizes. So second thing which we're gonna talk about today is our so-called media queries, and we're gonna learn them to give you the basic understanding how they works and how do they behave. Aaron is saying that README says about JavaScript. Not sure where you says, but if you see, okay, maybe there is some typo, but basically if you see this this GIF, it means that you are in a good repository. So just don't worry, just ignore it and use this one. This is the correct one. Okay, guys. So coming back to the lesson, media queries. So what media queries actually are? As I said, because times has changed, and you know, the languages, programming languages has also changed and adjust in the way we could, you know, so developers, so we could create responsive website in the easier way. CSS offers us something which is called media query. So let's check an example of this kind of media query. So I'm gonna add some styles here. So I'm gonna open style tag, and I'm gonna say that I'm gonna have my body background color set to light cyan. By the way, not sure if you knew that, but except for basic colors like red, blue, green, and so on, we can also have a little more sophisticated color shades. And now let's create a media query. I will say that I want to have my media query applicable for the screen. We're gonna talk about this later, because we can have different styles for screen, different for printing, different for the voice synthesizers, and so on and so on. So basically, since we are talking about the web page, we will be using screen, and we want to define some condition here. So we're gonna say max width should be less than 992 pixels, and what we're gonna do here, we're gonna specify again new style for body, and we're gonna say that we want to have a background color, but this time we're gonna use, let's say, okay, lavender should be nice. Okay, and one more media query, which will be pretty much the same. So I'm just gonna copy paste this one. I'm just gonna change the value. So I'm gonna say 600 pixels, and I'm gonna change a color. So how about Miss Rose? Okay, so we applied CSS styles to our web page. So now let's refresh it and let's see how it looks like now. So I'm gonna actually I'm gonna keep it open, because when it's open you can see the screen size over here, and I want you to see the screen size. So let me refresh the page and look at the background. Please observe the background right now. So I'm gonna reload it. So now we have this light cyan, right? So this style is being applied to our web page. But let's see what's gonna happen if we're gonna shrink our screen size, so we kind of emulate different device. So as soon as we're gonna reach this point 992, which we said, you can see that our background has changed color, which means that this one is applicable right now. So this one has a priority, right? So probably you already know what's gonna happen when we also gonna reach the 600 pixels point. So now we're gonna have another style applied. So basically we are styling the same element, but depending on on the screen size, or actually on the condition which we used, we will change the value of given property. So I hope you kind of feel now what we will be doing today, what we'll be learning, right? That while using a proper CSS styles, we can really define our website differently for the large screens and the smaller one. So let's have a look at another example. And one thing for you is that I want to know is that I want you to get a proper understanding of what media queries are and how to use it, because that's gonna be the useful information for you in the future. But later on, we're gonna see how to use Bootstrap, and this will make our life easier, because Bootstrap is actually taking care of a huge chunk of what I'm talking right now. But as I said, it's always important for you guys to remember that as a developer, you don't have to know all these things by heart, but you should have a good and proper understanding of what's going on. Okay, guys. So now I'm gonna provide some other styles. So I'm gonna paste them, and I'm gonna quickly explain it to you in a second. But what I want to do is I also want to show you that except for changing the colors or like borders, we can also change the shape, change size. Ganesh is asking, don't we close the body? Yeah, we should close the body. So basically, of course, we should close all tags open. Okay, so let's have a look at this example right now. So I'm gonna make our screen bigger and refresh it. So now in that case, we have like 4 columns. I just gave them different color shade, so we can distinguish them. And as you can see, I defined their size depending on the screen size. So let's have a look at this one. If I'm gonna shrink it, as soon as I reach this point, this breakpoint, the columns will rearrange, right? Which is a perfect option to make your website, more scalable. Because obviously we're not gonna fit and show. We won't be able to show all the 4 columns next to each other on a small screen. So it makes sense just to nest them one beneath the other. And if we're gonna shrink the screen below even further, then they will just go one under the another. So as you can see, you can pretty easily, and I'm just let me show you the code. You can pretty easily create your your media queries, which allows you to adjust the size and also make things rearrange on the website itself. And I wanted also to drag your attention to this number like 992 and 600 pixels. I mean, because they are not random. They are commonly used as so-called breakpoints. So basically, in other words, we treat them as a borderline between different devices. So like above this 992 pixels, we assume that this is usually like a proper desktop display screen or a laptop. And below 992, it's usually a tablet, and below 600 pixels, we assume that we are working on a mobile phone. Of course, this changes. Of course, the mobile devices are getting better and better, and they're having better resolution and so on. But as for today, this is like rule of thumb, which we are mostly using. Okay, guys. So just to sum up. And just to give you some, to wrap up what we just said, is that, we already know that CSS is a very, very powerful tool itself. And if we combine it with the media queries, which allows you to adjust different, to adjust almost everything, depending on the screen size, you can create totally different looks of the same web page and of the same component for mobile, tablet, and the desktop view. So basically, using media query in CSS, we can make a content to disappear on the certain screen size, right? So we can totally hide it on, for example, mobile. We can make them look totally different, like size, shape, content, background, and so on and so on. We can display some content only, for example, on the mobile phones, right? So and we can automatically resize the media, like pictures and photos, like we've seen in the very first example when the picture got like resized to the window size automatically. And just one word about the syntax itself. So the basic syntax looks like this. So you have like media, then only or not, so the conditions, media type, expressions, and the CSS code which we want to apply. So the whole thing, you don't need to know it by heart, just for your understanding, is that this whole condition evaluates either to true or false. So whatever condition we're gonna put here, it will either on the end says it's true or false, and if it is true, then it will apply this CSS as the priority ones. We can define numerous condition in queries. So we can target different media types. I've been talking about that before, like print, screen, or the speech synthesizers. You can target different media features, like minimum weight, minimum width, maximum width, minimum height, maximum height, orientation. So you can define different, you can even have different styles for the same tablet, but depending on the orientation. So if it's like, it's landscape or it's portrait, and then it's gonna be different. You can create different conditions. You can use logical operators like, and, not, and so on. And so on. So, well, it's a really, really, really powerful tool and powerful option. But as I said, For now, I think it's good enough for you that you. I hope that now you can understand how it works, and now we're gonna move forward to the Bootstrap. To the proper lesson. This is because technically you could write every single line of your website, but this is definitely not efficient, right? That's not how you do it. Like you're building a house. You mean technically you could create every single brick, and then out of brick you could build the walls, and then you could just create your house. But it will be it will be much faster if you can get bricks or even the whole walls from the shop, from the store, and then you can build and then you have then you can build the entire house much faster. And well, especially taking into account that those libraries like Bootstrap are free, so you are not paying any single cent for these walls. So why not to use them, right? And of course, again, important remark. I believe that it's always important that as a developers we should understand what's going underneath. So we shouldn't only rely on the libraries or frameworks, because if they're gonna fail at certain point, it's just the software, it may have bugs, then you won't be able to solve them. So don't go blindly into that. So get some proper understanding of what's going on. Do like a few examples on your by yourself, get a proper understanding, and then once you have this kind of confidence that how does it work, then you can use a framework. Okay, so let's move on to the first Bootstrap lesson. And there is a question from Don. Do you have a recommendation on breakpoints? That for me is the hardest part on the media queries. Let's leave it this question for a second, because in a second we're gonna talk about Bootstrap breakpoints. So the one which Bootstrap is using, and taking into account that Bootstrap is like one of the biggest. I mean, it is biggest library, like front-end library used by millions. So I think it's a good point of reference for all of us, which we can just use instead of trying to come up with something on our own. Okay, guys. So as for Bootstrap, so the Bootstrap, as I said, Bootstrap is the most popular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript framework for developers. It helps us to develop like responsive and something so-called mobile-first websites. As I said, in the very beginning, more than 60, probably even 70% now, because 60 have been there like 3 years back, is generated by mobile devices. So that's why our website, usually, unless you are doing some super sophisticated, admin dashboard panel for your application, you should assume that your website should be prepared for the mobile users as a priority, because most of them will be used them on the mobile phone. So Bootstrap, why is it so common? It is because it offers many different components, and we're gonna see them later on, like Jumbotron, nav bars, buttons, alerts, and so on. So we're gonna see them all in a couple of minutes. But I believe that the most powerful feature of Bootstrap is so-called Bootstrap Grid, and like in a nutshell, it's a mechanism which allows us to create a responsive website. So basically, the Bootstrap Grid allows us to define rows and these rows, each row can consist up to 12 columns, like this one, But as you can see, we can also, I mean, you can either use one column that will be 12 blocks long or multiple smaller blocks. And the only rule is that it cannot exceed this 12 size and 12 block size. As you can see that they can be equal, but as you can see here, they not necessarily have to. And let's have a look, how does it work in a practice. So let me now replace this code with a new one, and I will quickly go through the code for you. So what I just did, I just put like a very basic HTML markup on a very basic markup. So we have like HTML. We have our responsive meta point here, and here we are loading Bootstrap CSS from CDN, so the newest version. Here we have some title whatsoever, just placeholder, some heading, and here we have 3 scripts which we are loading. So the very first one is jQuery, and we're gonna have another webinar on jQuery specifically. I think in 2 or 3 weeks. That's gonna be the next one on jQuery, when we're gonna learn how to use it. So just for your information, for now it is using jQuery. And then we have like 2 dependencies. I mean, the dependencies is like jQuery is one of them, and the popper is another one, and then we have a Bootstrap itself. So nothing fancy here. We are just loading. Bootstrap. There's a question from TJ. I thought Bootstrap was designed on a 1200 pixel grid. Can Bootstrap work for the web pages larger than 1200 pixels wide, or is there a better framework to use on kind of pages? So we'll get there just in a couple of seconds. I'm gonna show you the Bootstrap breakpoints, current Bootstrap breakpoints, because they are also changing. And as for now, I believe the Bootstrap is the best one. I mean, you know, if you look at the market cap, market usage for different frameworks, Bootstrap is bigger. It has bigger market share than 10 other frameworks summed up all together. So it shows you scale, right? So it shows you some on what scale we are talking about, and yeah, I believe the for now there is not good. I mean, there are alternatives, of course, but taking into account that this is so common, I'm not saying it's the best. But even taking into account, you know, the community itself, if you're gonna encounter some issues, probably, I mean, you're gonna find the answer for your problem within like seconds on a Stack Overflow or Googling the issue, while for other frameworks it might be just tricky. What is the Bootstrap JS for, and when do I need it? Okay, so the Bootstrap JS file contains like JavaScript files. So of course it's being used for a logic. So let me park this question, and I'm gonna go a little bit more into details for that after the learning part. Let's try to keep this part within 1 hour, so we're not gonna spend too much time others people on that, and after that stay with me, and we're gonna just look into that file, and I will go through briefly. So we're gonna see which components of Bootstrap are using which require JavaScript, because as I said, Bootstrap is not only the Bootstrap Grid, but it's also it also offers us a lot of components. Okay, guys, so let's have a look at following example. So then again, by the way, all the examples which I'm doing here are there on the GitHub repository. So if you follow me, you can get all of them and just copy paste them from tutorial. I'm just copying them just to show you more stuff instead of typing them all by my own right now. That will obviously take more time. Okay, guys. So this is the example of the grid I want to show you, and this is a piece of CSS style which will basically apply these styles to the any element which has class with call in it, right? So like this is the call it will work, but this will also work for this call.8, because if I would put it like this, then it wouldn't be applied to this row. So this is just another, this is some small trick which might be useful for you in a future. Okay, so let me find my page here and let me refresh it. Right, so this is what we've been talking so far. And what happens here? What happened here is that we have container. So container provides us some utility to center and horizontally pad our content, and we can use container like we did right here, and the container contain margins here, so you can see there is some free space on both sides, like here. Or if we want our content to be on the full width, we can use another class which is called container fluid. And then as you can see, we'll get the full width of our screen available and filled. Okay, I'm gonna get back to this one. And then inside the containers we have rows. They all should sum up to 12, but they shouldn't exceed 12. And as you can see, there are two options. We can either specify size for our rows, like 8 plus 4, which gives 12 in total, or we can just use this like this, and then it will automatically define the size and spread it through whole available space, right? So if you're gonna remove one, then it will let me put like 1, 2, 3, 6 of them, and then let me remove some of them. So as you can see, it will take care for the layout automatically. So it is so-called auto layout. Dejan asked for this CSS style. I think I answered this one, but there is a small delay, like 50 seconds from what I'm saying and until it shows up to you. So I'm not sure. Please let me, Dejan, if it's still unclear, and then I'm gonna explain it again. But I just think that it might be because of the delay. Okay, guys. So as I said, we have containers, we have rows, and we have columns. And this altogether is a really powerful tools, and I'm gonna show you in the second part when we're gonna build the website from the intro. I'm gonna show you how we can use it to put all elements on our app's website next to each other, and yeah, you're gonna see how useful it is. So basically. So this is the grid row, but the real power of Bootstrap comes from the breakpoints, and there were questions regarding the breakpoints. So Bootstrap is, as we said, developed to be a mobile first. So it uses this media queries to create sensible breakpoints for layouts, and these breakpoints are mostly based off minimum viewport width. And I'm gonna show you the table now, and they allow us to scale up elements at the viewport change. So this is like the most this is the current configuration of the breakpoints for Bootstrap. So as you can see, we distinguish a couple of them, and one of them is like extra small. It's XS, so it's smaller than 567 pixels. Then we have a small, which is between, which is greater than 576, but it's since there is another breakpoint for a medium here, 768. So this small will be applicable between this range, so between 576 and 768. And so on and so on. So you can see here So you can see here what are the breakpoints currently proposed by Bootstrap. In any case, we always sum up to 12 columns, and these are the classes which you're gonna be using to define this kind of breakpoints. So let's see how does it work in a practice. So I'm gonna close it now, and I'm gonna replace my grid with something like that. And as you can see now, we have like 3 columns next to each other. But since we use this SM, so which stands for small, as soon as we hit the breakpoint for the small size, they're gonna all nest one below the other. And I hope that you can already feel how easy it is to use. So how easy it is to use Bootstrap, right? So instead of writing all those media queries by ourselves, you can just use those classes. And if you just get used to this, grid size and this math to sum up to 12, you're gonna get this kind of feeling. Okay, I've got a couple of questions, and they are related to the subject. So let me quickly answer them. Paulina is asking how you can make call 8 2 times bigger than call 4. It's because 4 and 8. Yes, yeah, it is exactly because of that. So if you defined, let me get back to this example. So make sure that it's clear for you. So this is because if or actually, you know what? Let me give you another example. I have another example which will, I hope, clearly answer all doubts. So let's have a look at this code for a second. So what we have here, it's a div with classes, and this is another important thing about the grid. So we can apply different classes for the same column, right? So we can define that you want this column to have different size on different screen size. So for example, I want my div class to have a size of 1 on XL screen size. When on a little bit smaller screen size, like large, I want to have this to be 2. Then we have this MD4. So on the medium, I want this to have a size of 4 columns in total, then 6 and 12 in total. And let's have a look at how this looks like now here. So since we are on the extra large, so on the biggest screen, each of the column has size of 1, right? So, and then we have 12 columns next to each other, and they all sum up to 12. And now if I'm gonna change the size of my screen and reach large, then size of each column change to this one. So LG2. So which means now each of the column takes like 2 columns in total. So that's why in one row we have 6 of them, right? Because it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. And after 12, we start a new line. Then when we shrink it further, each of the column will get a size of 4. And then as a result, since it's 4, we can only fit 3 next to each other. Then if we shrink further, it will get 6, so 2 next to each other. And finally, we say that at the smallest screen, we want to have this size 12. So we want to fill the whole gap between, like in our screen, right? So we are able to fit only 1 cell in it, which of course makes sense if we want to be able to put some content in here. Is it clear now, Paulina? Okay, there was question about this selector both on the Facebook and both on the Facebook and YouTube about this div class call. So this is kind of trick which is basically which will apply these styles to any div which class name contains this character, so call. So it's like, you know, so this will be applicable, but also this will also be applicable, right? Because it contains call. Okay, now another question is, how well does Media Query interact with Bootstrap? Well, they will interact, but the problem is that if you're gonna mix them up, right? Because then you will have two pieces of code trying to change your website. So that might be tricky. So I would rather go stick to one solution, right? So if you're using Bootstrap, use Bootstrap and try to solve everything using Bootstrap. Of course, sometimes you might end up in a situation where it's impossible and you have to write some custom code, but it's never a good practice to mix it up, because then you will end up in a situation that in one case this style will take over and it will have the higher priority, and in the other one it's not gonna work. So I wouldn't mix it up, but it is of course possible, right? At the end, what we are doing here, we are just using some predefined classes which have been written by someone else, but at the end you have a media query underneath behind. Stanley, if we don't define the size, will the div resize itself equally as the screen size change? So yeah, I mean, if I got your question correctly, yeah, this is whole idea behind the responsiveness. So if you use just call, it will no, actually if you use just call, it will not resize. You need to define call and the breakpoint, like call SM, call medium, call whatever, because then only it will know how to and then only it will know how to when to break. There's a question from Tofik. What times does it finish? So I was hoping to finish this learning part within 1 hour, but I already see that there are a lot of questions, so probably it will take another 40 minutes to finish the tutorial part and the lesson part, and after that it's just up to you guys, depending on how many questions you're gonna have, and I'm gonna stay as long as it takes just to answer all your questions. Okay, next question. Done. That's really easy to do. Wow, yeah, it is. That's what it is about. Aaron, is the class order in the row children important? No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not, because if we're talking about these classes, they are not important, because at the end, what really matters is the screen size, and this is what takes the priority. Okay, guys. So we covered a huge chunk of a Bootstrap right now. Now, if you want, of course, this is much more powerful, and I'm just gonna give you some more examples without going into code. Is that, for example, you may want to skip some columns right here, right? So you don't want to start from the left. Or from the edge. You may want to go with some more crazy stuff, like I don't know, like let's say, this is the alignment, right? So you may want to align your content vertically to the top, to the center, or to the bottom, and you may want to do some horizontal alignment to the left, to the right, to the left, and so on and so on. So there are much more use cases, and that's why I strongly suggest you to just save this link for later and just go through it and just practice a little bit different examples, because most probably you're gonna use them. In the future when it comes to building a real application. Like with the media queries, right? We are giving you like basics, but you need to take a proper time also to work on it, and yeah, just try to figure out these different layouts, because that will be useful for a future anyway. But anyway, we just cover a huge chunk of code, which I believe gives you very good basics and essential understanding how to use it. And I'm gonna show you how using this very simple grid we can achieve really astonishing results. Okay, few more questions. Tawfiq, how long does this webinar last? As I said, I'm always aiming to finish the learning part within 1 hour, but since we have a lot of questions, it will take probably around 1 hour and a half to finish the lesson. And after the lesson, I'm gonna stay as long as it takes to answer all your questions, because just to make sure that you guys all understand and have a good feeling and understanding of what's going on. Okay, Natalie, is MDB something like we've got in Angular material? Not sure what you're asking for, but basically MDB, it's a material design for Bootstrap, which basically gives a material design look for Bootstrap. So, but I'm gonna show you that later on. Okay, guys, I will try to speed up a little bit, just to make sure to keep it very, essential for you, and make sure. Ganesh, it's the question isn't stupid. It's here there is small difference. So this part is class, and this is the content of the cell, right? So this is what is being displayed here. If I'm gonna change this one to content, like let's say Ganesh, and this one to David, so this will just replace the content of those columns, right? I hope it's clear now. Okay, guys, so now we've been talking about the Bootstrap Grid, which is, I believe, the most important feature, but as I said, also there are a lot of Bootstrap components which you can use. So so I'm gonna go quickly through some of them to give you the basic understanding of what components are there for us to use. But starting with some basic and most commonly used components like a card. Let me quickly copy the code of the card here. So this is Bootstrap card, and by the way, I'm missing some pictures, so I'm gonna show you where you can get nice image placeholder if you are missing currently some image and you are building website and you need some placeholder. So what you can do, you can use this website image placeholder, and in a source you can specify, it's pasting some extra advertisement here, let's remove it. So we can just use this https via placeholder.com, and you can specify the image size like 300, and this, what it's gonna do, it will put here a placeholder, so a fake image for us. So this is a basic card, so one of the components which is available for us to use in a Bootstrap. But well, to be honest, I really admire Bootstrap for being very functional, but on the design style, on the design side, it's not that modern, it's not that sexy, I would say. That's why I'm gonna show you how we can make the Bootstrap components looks much better. And in order to do that, we're gonna add another small library, which is material design for Bootstrap, so MDB. And let me quickly show you, so you can get the feeling what's the difference is between a basic card from Bootstrap. So I'm gonna paste here this, or actually I'm gonna show you that differently. So if you downloaded this lesson files, we have this starter folder here. So I'm gonna make a copy. I'm gonna make a copy of this one, and I'm gonna just call it components, because we're gonna be testing components here. And I'm gonna open up this in Visual Studio Code. So I'm gonna close this one, and I'm gonna open this one in Visual Studio Code. And as you can see, it's just the same. It's pretty much the same starter which we had before. The only difference is that, except for the Bootstrap, we are also loading this MDB library here, and also MDB JavaScript. And now let's quickly let's use the same card but with material design styles. And let me open this now. So as you can see, this material design gives us, it keeps the same, it's the code is pretty much the same, usually is the same or almost the same, but material design gives us this nice style and some effects. So you can see we have this small shadow here, we have slightly rounded corners here, we have this waves effect, and so on and so on. So just for information, we will be still talking about the Bootstrap components, but I will be just using this MDB library here right now. So you're gonna see that the look will be much enjoyable. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna quickly go through the very common and very basic components which comes with the Bootstrap, which again, let me remind you, is totally for free, and you can use it as much as you want to build your website. So one of the most common components ever in Bootstrap, being used in Bootstrap. Natalie says it's nicer. Thank you. Yeah, I also believe it looks much better. So, and by the way, MDB is also open source, so you can use it. So just use it, download and enjoy. So buttons. I'm gonna paste code of a couple of buttons, and these are the buttons. Then again, they are slightly different in the pure Bootstrap. Here you have this nice shadow and this wave effect when you click on it. So of course, buttons are very important component in our in web development. And as you can clearly see here, you can easily change. You can easily change the color of the button just by adding certain class, and these are the color classes. Now there are also other type of buttons which you can use. So this one are called outlines, and with an MDB we extended Bootstrap also for the gradient buttons, which you can also use, which are there at your disposals. So we've been talking about cards already, and now just one important thing to remember is that if we're gonna paste an empty card here, what's gonna happen is that this card, and this is a little bit different card. This is called panel. But as you can see, it doesn't look good, and this is because it's taking the whole width available, the whole space available. So you need to keep in mind that either you have to set its width using styles, or what you can do, we can use, and this is good, and this is one good example of using grid to limit the size of our component. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna create container, so div with class container. And by the way, Actually, I'm gonna talk about this later. So I'm gonna create a row, and I'm gonna create a call, let's say 3 with size 3. And now I'm gonna put my panel card into this column. And once I refresh, you can see that this got narrowed down. Oh, it's too narrow now. So I'm gonna say, let's say 5. And by the way, there was question about the whether content is getting adjusted automatically. So look at this. If I say call 3, it's too narrow now, but this is because my screen size is half of it, right? Because I put my browser only on the half of the screen. So if I would be using this on the full screen size, it would look much better. So you also need to keep this in mind when you are building responsive website. Now, one more thing which I wanted to show you, which also comes with MDB, is that this panel is touching our the edge of our web browser. So how to add margin, how to push it to the bottom? Well, there is nothing easier, and instead of typing some custom styles, we can just use M for margin, T for top margin, and that says give a number from 1 to 5, which will apply margin in RAM in RAM values. Okay. Another thing is that if we don't specify top, it will give us margin from each side, right? So top, bottom, left, down, and so on and so on. Marcus, I have MDB Angular Pro. Is it better to use the CDN or the downloaded zip for the CSS? If you have Pro, I believe it's better to use CDN. Actually, there is no, the CDN is coming from our GitLab. It's just because that every time you update, you will get the newer version. So I would just suggest using CDN for that. Yeah, but just make sure that you have good access to CDN because Pro is on the GitLab server. Okay, guys. So we have cards, we have buttons. So now I'm gonna show you really cool stuff, which is then again at your disposal for free, and it will solve a lot of issues which you for sure gonna encounter when you start building your first website from scratch. And I'm talking about navigation. So I'm gonna use something which is called navbar. I'm gonna copy paste this code here, and let's have a look how this navbar looks like. So this is our navbar code, but something here doesn't work. Let me quickly check why it's. Hold on. Okay, so we're gonna do debugging live because it doesn't work. I'm gonna show you how you can easily find those elements by yourself. So if you just go to MDB or Bootstrap site, depending whether you want to use Material Design or the pure Bootstrap, and you search for navbar, you will get these ones. And then you just copy code and paste it here. And okay, so probably the reason it doesn't work is because we are not using the latest MDB library. Let me check this one. Let me verify that. No, it seems to be okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now you're gonna see how to debug in the real time. So I'm gonna use inspector to see what's going on. Okay, so this style. Okie dokie, now I see what's the problem. So guys, as you can see, I just found out that there is this column navbar not. So this is the code which is making our navbar transparent, and this code is in our style CSS file. So it turned out that our starter has a small bug. So the starter code is including this CSS file, and if we go to the style CSS, it has some styles here, and these styles are there for the final website which we're gonna build at the very end. So I'm gonna remove it for now, and I will also update our repository, and now it will work like a charm. Okay guys, so coming back, what I was about to show you. So very often when you build a website, you need some navigation, and this top navigation called navbar is one of the most famous. And what is cool about that is that Bootstrap is giving you this this option that you don't need to build any media queries by yourself. You just use it, and then look what's gonna happen when you shrink the size to the screen, to the mobile size, for example. So boom, now we have like collapsing menu right away, right? So our menu will work both for mobiles, and here we have a drop downs. So this is yet another cool component from Bootstrap, and let's have a look on other drop down example, because this is also nice. This is nice component to use when you have more data to show, to use at the same time. So I'm gonna remove everything from my body, and I'm gonna give you example of a drop down. So this is like a basic drop down which you can use in your navigation. There's a question from Dawn. How easy, difficult would it be to change behavior of the navbar when you click it, like full screen or window from left or right? Well, of course it depends. Basically, it isn't difficult, but that's it all depends on your knowledge, right? I mean, you have a good understanding on HTML and classes, you can easily adjust and customize it. So it's not difficult, but you need to have some, basics to adjust it. Okay, guys. So I want to quickly show you a few more cool stuff which you can use from a Bootstrap. There are more questions, guys, but let's therefore do it this way. Please post your question. Please post your questions, and I'm gonna take care of them. I'm gonna answer them later. Tofik, no worry. I mean, just subscribe to our YouTube channel. You're gonna find it here, and it will be stored and recorded there, so you can watch it later. Hello, heal me. We are live for 1 hour, so you missed some part, but feel free to stay. And if you want, you can also watch it later. Okay, guys, let's continue because I want to quickly show you the more components, and then I'm gonna show you how we're gonna build very fast the entire website using these components which I just showed you. So another important thing, another interesting thing in Bootstrap is actually text utilities. So look at this example. What I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna create the div with some width here, and look how easy it is using these classes to align your text. So using just the text left, we're gonna align our text to the left edge. If you want to center it, we just do the text center, the same for the right. And if you want to justify text, it's nothing easier than just adding this text justify classes, and it will do work for you. Then another thing which you can use, and another bunch of useful classes to to use within a paragraph. So we can mark some text, like highlight. We can cross it out. We can do underline. We can make it stronger, smaller, and so on and so on. So this gives us a lot of useful classes right out of the box. So there is no need for writing any CSS style by you. Now, except for a style, you can of course change the color of the text, and you just need to use this class, like text default. So these are the colors, and these are the colors for the background. So if you want to highlight it, that's the easiest way to do it. You can even do, during the last webinar, there was a question about how to make text with uppercases. So you can even do the text transformation using just classes. So look at this. So this is the normal text, and it was lowercase. So there is the first letter is the L letter is lower case. Now you can do the uppercase, and you can have also capitalized text, which means that every first letter would get capitalized. Other interesting components to use are black quotes. So this one, and actually they will be better visible if we're gonna put them in container. So let me put this into container. So it will be centered with some margins, and we can also have notification like this, right? So this is a nice piece of predefined code to highlight some part of the text now. And there are many more components. If you go to the website of Bootstrap or of MD Bootstrap, and you're gonna see that there are a lot of different components, like Jumbotron I talked about before. So these are like Jumbotrons, just predefined pieces of code for you, like very basic Jumbotron, which you can use on your landing page, and so on, which you can use and which are there for you. And we're not gonna go through all of them because it will probably take us hours to cover all possible components, and there are hundreds of them. But there is one more which I want to show you, and it's called Accordion or Collapse, depending. I mean, you can use both names for this one, and I want to show you this collapse, how it works. So this allows us to very quickly create this collapsible content. So to hide some content on the page, so it takes less and less space. So and why it is important is because we're gonna use it in our web page right now, and that's what I'm gonna do right now. So I will be quickly creating this web page, which you can see here, or actually here, from scratch, using just a Bootstrap Components. And I think it's not gonna take us longer than 10 minutes, so stay with me. And again, let me just remind you that this piece of code is available here at the final folder. So this is the final code, so you can download it and you can try to build it yourself. You can try to build it with me right now, and if you don't make it, no worries, just try to do it later on at home. If something doesn't work, you can always compare your code and see why something didn't work as expected. So well, let's remove whatever we have here. So just make a empty template for now, and let me rearrange Windows a little bit so you could see it. So you could see both the whole code and the whole both code and the page itself. So let me check. We are now in which folder we are now? Components. Okay, so let's open this index. So now, as you can see, it is an empty file, and what we have here is our starter here. So what I'm gonna start with is that I'm gonna start with very basic structure of our file. So I'm gonna say header, main, and footer. So I'm gonna split this part and our website into 3 parts. And as you can also see, let me show you this, it doesn't do anything to our web page. So those are more like semantical dividers, which allows us to better read the code. And you're gonna see that once we're gonna create the website, once you're gonna fill the content, it will get more and more messy. So they will be very, very useful very useful to have them. So I'm gonna start with adding a navbar and intro. So what I'm basically doing is that you can just go to the to MD Bootstrap page. Oh, hold on. Let's go to MD Bootstrap page, and I'm just taking some of the predefined components. So I have these intros here, and I just took one of these code examples from here. So I choose the video one. So this is the one which I'm gonna use right now. So as you can see, I have HTML code here and CSS, which I have to use. So I'm gonna add now this small piece of CSS code, which is required for this component to work. I'm gonna save it, and I'm gonna refresh the page, and boom, look how our web page just got the intro with some nice video in behind. But then again, what is important is, as you can see, it's just a navbar with some extra class change to show the transparent background, so we can see this nice video underneath the navbar. And we have just some, some headings, paragraph, and one of the buttons here. So nothing fancy, and you can easily recreate it by your own right now. Okay, now I'm gonna add new section, and I'm gonna call this section about. So again, the sections are just more like semantical parts, and I'm gonna put it in the main section here. And let's see how this section looks like. So I'm refreshing the page, and now I'm able to scroll down, and boom, we have a section, right? And pretty nice section. And let's just give a closer look to what has happened and how this section is built. So if you look at that, you're gonna see that it's nothing really fancy, because what we have here is we have some headings here, we have some paragraph here, and then boom, we have a grid. So something which you already learned. So we have a grid which is split to 2 columns, smaller and a greater one. And let's have a look. The smaller one is boring, it's just the image over there. But let's have a look at this one. So the wider one, this one, is also, as you can see, it's also divided to rows, and this row is divided to 2 columns as well, right? This one with the size 1, and this one with the size 11 and 10. So as you can see, we are splitting this part. We are using, you can use columns and rows also to place elements inside existing row or inside existing divs. It's very fancy, it's very useful, and you're gonna find this this very easy to use. So I strongly encourage you to get familiar with this one, because this is really, otherwise we would have to create some kind of divs here, define the paragraphs, define some margins or paddings or so on or whatsoever, and then it will be probably you would have to take care of responsiveness of this div. And now what you have to do is just use one of the existing columns which are already there. Okay, so let's take another section from code, from examples, and this section, I think you're gonna be also amazed with the simplicity of how it was created, and at the same time of astonishing look. So let's have a look at this one. Boom, our best projects. And yet again, it's a very simple design, but very neat, very clean, very stylish, I would say. So again, just a paragraph with proper margin, some paragraph here. Then we have 3 cards next to each other, and that's it. And by the way, let's have a look how these cards are behaving. It's also interesting, because we don't necessarily always have to make our cards behave the same way. So as you can see, instead of putting all 3 cards one below the other, we can make this card bigger and leave these 2 smaller, which gives us a really nice and interesting interesting pattern on our web page. So let's have a look at another example. So this section is called frequently asked questions, and so this question is often used to answer some questions which are often asked by the customers, and that's why I wanted to show you Accordion, because that's what we're gonna use here. Have a look at this one. Boom. Nice and neat way to cover all the questions. So you can have like 50 different questions. You could put them in 2 or 3 columns all together, and instead of having like a very long section here, we have very small and neat section, which makes our website much smaller and much more compact. And finally, I want to show you another example, which also gonna be interesting for you, because it will show you that our content can behave totally differently, and that it can take totally different look depending on the screen size. So I'm gonna use this section called examples here. So again, very simple and very neat look. So we have just some panel, Bootstrap panel, and simple image with some small shadow behind it, and created in this nice way. And let's gonna see what will happen if I'm gonna shrink the screen now. So once I'm shrink it till a certain level, boom, they will become like a cards. And that's it. So now we have like a cards instead of this layout which you've seen before. And by the way, do you remember the previous one which was bigger? Now once we reach screen size which is small enough, it will change to this 3 rows pattern. But if you make it bigger, it will have 2 next to each other. Okay guys, and finally, last but not the least, definitely, it's a footer. So a very important part of any web page. So again, I'm gonna just I would just use predefined example from mdbootstrap.com, and I'm gonna paste it here into our footer section, and this will give us this nice and neat contact form section at the bottom of our page. So here we have a form which you can use, and the button to submit our form. Of course, this is just HTML part, right? So this is it's not gonna work yet. It's not gonna send any message, but we will have another webinar on this one on how to connect our contact forms to the backend. So how to write a PHP script and how to send the messages via email, or how to send them, or how to store them in database. And I think it will be like in 4 to 7 weeks, somewhere there. I'm not sure. I don't remember schedule. Right now. But yeah, more or less this is the time frame when we're gonna learn how to connect these forms to our to the backend. Okay, guys, so that's it for the learning part. Now I've got few requests for you. So the first of all, this is the link for a tutorial lesson, so you can download it. And I would like to ask you, if you like this tutorial, just to give a star to this repository. So the more star it will get, then the more people will find it, and the more people can learn from it. So if you like it, we would really appreciate if you could give us the star here. Now the next thing is that, as I said, and some of you know already, every Tuesday we are having new webinar. So you can subscribe for the next webinar already here. And we will have next webinar the same time next week, Tuesday. There is also a group which you can join, and this group is used for sharing materials among each others. So if you like, just feel free to join that group. And we are also posting some some quizzes over there. We are also sharing knowledge over there. So feel free to join this group, and there's a lot of interesting content. By the way, next webinar will be about jQuery. So we're gonna learn jQuery, how to use it, and how powerful is that. I strongly encourage you to subscribe for this one already. Then again, if you missed something, or if you missed the previous, webinars, don't worry. I mean, you can always watch them, because we are recording them for you. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that's how you're not gonna miss any future webinars. Or you can also be able to download them easily. And yeah, I think that's it. I mean, for the learning part. And by the way, yeah, I've just created the tutorial on how to use Git. So like the Git essentials in 20 minutes. So that will be posted on YouTube this week. So I also suggest you to subscribe to our channel, so you're not gonna miss that. Okay, guys, thank you very much for staying with me for 1.5 hours. And now I'm gonna go through all the questions which been posted there. And I will try to answer them. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them right now or in the Facebook group. So we're gonna support you there. And by the way, there is the team of MDB over there at your disposal. So if you have any question, just do not hesitate to, on any subject actually. Don't limit yourself. I mean, we have a knowledge we have an experience in many different technologies. So whatever language comes to your mind and you have an issue, just post it there. If you have any feedback for us, also please do not hesitate to share it with us. If we can do something else, something better, that will be highly appreciated if you could share it with us, so we can make these webinars even better and more enjoyable and more comfortable for all of you guys. So let me quickly get back, and I'm gonna quickly go through the questions, and I'm gonna see which one I missed or skipped, and I'm gonna answer them right now. So going from the top, let me see. Don was asking about the breakpoint. So as we said, I just suggest to use the same as Bootstrap is using at the moment, as this is kind of standard for now. Aaron was asking what is the Bootstrap JS. Okay, so I was about to ask. I was about to answer that. So let's have a look at this Bootstrap JS file. And that will give us some understanding on where we can use it. So basically, there are components which have to be, for example, initialized, and they will not work without the JS. So one of the example for this is, for example, I think it will be the dropdown or carousel, for example. Let's have a look at the carousel. So again, I'm just gonna go here. I'm gonna type carousel. Carousel is also sometimes called slider. So this component looks like this. It's also commonly used. It can create a nice stunning effect. So like this one. See? So this is something which is called carousel. And this is actually an element which requires JavaScript, right? So as I said, Bootstrap comes with CSS, but also with some JS components, and that's why we also require Bootstrap JS to work them. Of course, if you're not gonna use them, then you don't need them, but there are a lot of them. Okay, let me go through the next questions. What happens if the Bootstrap is updated? Will my style change? So basically, of course, if Bootstrap gets updated, no, until you don't update the Bootstrap in your project manually, nothing will happen. And if you are about to update it to the newest version, which is usually a good idea, there is always something which is called a release log or change log. So let me give you an example. I'm gonna show you how the change log looks like. So this is the change log for MDB. So you can see usually you have all the changes listed here, and it says what has been changed and if there were any changes to syntax, for example, or to the file structure, like here. So it's always wise to check the changelog before applying the update on your website. Going further, Mark, if you want to use more drop-downs, say 4 for menu, how do you keep them separated properly? Mark, I'm not sure what you are asking. Are you asking about having 4 nav bars next to each other, like this one? Well, then there is no issue at all. You just duplicate this drop-down element here, which is here, drop-down, right? Let's have a look at this example. And if you want to add more elements here, you can use dividers, right? By the way, it's not recommended to use so-called mega menus, like this mega menu. Let me show you an example of mega menu. Let's see how it works. Where is it? Try the demo. Okay, so like this one, right? So you have a menu like drop down, and then you have another menu when you hover over some element. Why this is not a good idea? It's because on the mobile and on the tablet there is nothing like hovering, right? We cannot hover with our finger over this element, so it's very difficult to show this menu. So I don't recommend you using this this nested drop down, so drop down under drop down and so on, because this just will get more confusing. And let's have a look at the example here we have. So we have some drop down here. No, we don't have a drop down. Let me see the previous example we've been using. So we've been, okay, I'm gonna use starter. I'm gonna use open with code. I will click clean the styles which were messing up before. I'm gonna put the body here, and I'm gonna put this drop down 2 times, and we have just 2 drop downs next to each other, so nothing stops us from using like 4 of them next to each other. So the next question: how can we build site to have only mobile menu for desktop and for mobile? I'm not sure what you are asking for. Could you please rephrase it? How can we build a site to have only mobile menu? Oh, for desktop and the mobile. So you want to have just this one, like this? Well, then you can adjust your breaking points, right? So you will have to adjust the code for Bootstrap, and you need to change this breaking point that you don't want this break to happen under 500 pixels or 300 pixels, but you want to keep it like 1000 or 2000 pixels, so it will break at this point. Or you can replace the HTML for both cases. Okay, next questions. Ganesh, how to have separate pages access like about the projects? Not sure again what you're asking. Do you want to keep them as separate, like, you know, that you can click on it and it will get you to the separate web page? Then of course we need to create a new file, HTML file, and put the content over there. If you are asking about the divider itself, then there are like different dividers you can use. It can be like a very simple divider like hold on, let me find this section. So it was found. And by the way, this is the good example why do we need this section and comments here. Now when we are creating a real page with what we have here, like 600 lines of codes without comments, it would be very, very difficult to navigate through all of them. So you can just create a line like using HR, or unless you're asking about this one. So if section or any element on the site has this ID, then you can provide a link like this. And this will like open the web page directly at this section, because the ID was there. And by the way, there is a nice component which is called scroll spy. So you can also combine this one. So the scroll spy allows us to show at which part of the page we are currently at, and if we click on something, it will smoothly get us to a proper point out on the page. So it's called, this is the scroll spy, and this is the smooth scroll. So when you click and it's going smoothly, it scrolls smooth scroll. Okay, going through next questions. Mark, no, for dropdowns I have found they bump into each other. So you think you're talking about this one, right? Well, okay, so for the dropdown, this is like the way it behaves. So it's kind of expected because dropdowns works like this, that you show it and then you hide it. But you could also implement this kind of mechanism instead of dropdown, right? So this instead of dropdown could have this mechanism with sliding. So basically you could just use accordions here, and this accordion would push the remaining part to the bottom. So then it will not cover the existing one. TJ, I'm wondering how to deal with larger web pages over 1200 pixel wide and how this appears on the larger screen. So basically, you know, Bootstrap defines the largest one, and everything which goes above this will just go into that one. So they will pretty much behave the same. So no need to worry. I mean, think of it this way. I mean, even if you have a 4K screen, and for example, I have one like this currently as a second screen, even though it has a 4K resolution and it has like 3900 whatever pixels, anyway, what most of the operating systems does, it's scale it, because if you use the original, resolution like 4000 pixels, everything becomes so small that it's almost invisible. So you won't be dealing with the page which is like 4000 pixels long, because even if you have a screen like this, it will just rescale it and zoom it everything. So everything will be much sharper, but in the end, it will more or less like a full HD, like 920 by 1080, I guess, resolution, right? So usually this will work like this full HD. So what you have to the only thing you should take care of is to make sure that all your images, for example, are in the proper resolution. They have a proper resolution, right? Because if you're gonna have a 4K screen and your image gonna be like 2000 pixels, so it's not gonna fill the full width, or if you force it to fill the entire screen, it will just, it won't look good because it will be like pixelized. Paulina, navbar can be vertical. I mean, technically you can do anything. Basically, yes, it can be vertical, but this is not navbar anymore then. So this is something which is called side nav. This is something which is brought by material design, and by the way, material design was created by Google. So actually this is the side nav, right? So if you this is the side nav, so it comes from the left side, so it's side nav, side navigation. And yeah, I mean, you can of course create components like this, and this is something which is there in material design by default, and this is unfortunately not there in a Bootstrap. So Bootstrap by default doesn't have this side navigation enabled. Another interesting thing are modals, which we didn't cover, but they're also coming with Bootstrap. So models are this kind of windows. So every time you do some kind of settings or whatever, or admin, you can use it to display. Okay, so that's been all questions from Facebook. Let me switch to YouTube now. Please share the code link, CodePen, which I prefer. Well, you can find the code on a GitHub. I mean, I believe this is the best way because you have the all source code. CodePen allows you just to show, like for the single page. For the single page, so it's a little bit more. I mean, it's less powerful than Git, but if you want to see the final result, Naim, I can give you a link to my snippet on mdbootstrap.com, which is this one, that one. So this is the one, this is the one. Okay, then please do a tutorial on admin panel. We will do tutorial on admin panel. And there's question how to use Git. So then again, as I said, let me check if our marketing team has already prepared this one for us. Okay, so it's unlisted, guys. So it hasn't been published yet, but because you are my live webinar listeners, I'm gonna share it with you before the official release, so you can guys enjoy it. So it's like it's Git essential in less than 20 minutes for you from scratch, so you could have a good understanding on how to use Git. So I strongly encourage you to do so, and that will be very useful for a future webinars as well. Okay, guys, do you have any questions? And if so, please do not hesitate to ask them right now. I'm still here to answer them, and even if you forget something, don't worry. We're gonna you can always post them in a Facebook group. This is what it's meant for. And if there are no more questions, then thank you guys again for watching and for staying with me. More than 70 people today. It's an amazing number. A lot of questions, a lot of interaction. I really appreciate that. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and stay tuned, and remember, next Tuesday, the same time, the same time, the same platform. And what we'll learn next, we'll learn jQuery. So we're gonna use jQuery. We're gonna see how jQuery compare to the vanilla JS, and how it makes easier life easier when we use jQuery instead of vanilla JS. There are some questions. I'm very happy that you are posting questions. Mark, what is the syntax to add local logo PNG in the navbar, and you can use SVG instead of PNG? Example, change the MDB logo in the top side navbar. So nothing easier, right? I mean, that's, if you look at this one. Let me see which file we are using right now. So I've got too many windows. So basically, you will find this. Most of the cases are usually covered in docs. So if you go to our docs, you will find an example with images, right? So this is example on how to use it with images. So just go to mdbootstrap.com, search for navbar, and find the corresponding piece of code, and just copy it, and then you can use it. And of course you can use SVG, right? SVG is different format type, and you can use it easily. If an image has a small media and large, does the large get downloaded? There is okay, so this is interesting. There is something which is called responsive images, and by the way, we didn't cover this one, and I'm gonna quickly do it right now. So basically, responsive images, there is this option in HTML which is called source set, which allows us to add different images size for different viewport. So basically, this allows us to load only the different image size for the different screen sizes. So if we are on the mobile and we have image prepared for 4K resolution, we don't necessarily need to load the 4K image on our mobile phone. So that will do a job. And by the way, there is also interesting feature in which is called let me go to components. Okay, I'm gonna clean it up, or actually let me do it in we have it here actually, I believe. So we have this image fluid. Okay, so this is this image fluid. So come on. So as you can see, this image fluid class is making our image. Look at the image now. It resizes automatically, right? So this is how you can handle these images to always fulfill the whole container width, right? And of course, it's not enlarged because this is its maximum size, but on this small part, and we cannot get it smaller because of the content here, but you can see now that this image is actually enlarging, right? So it's adjusting this its size. It's adjusting its size to it's adjusting its size to the web browser size automatically. So that's a really cool feature actually. Okay, Marcus, Aaron, what is MDB Pro? So basically, MDB is an open source library, and you can use it, and feel free to use it. It's like MIT. You can use it, download it, copy it, make commercial website. And there is also MDB Pro, so which is like more extended version of MDB, which has like more components and more variation, and this is this is the paid version. So so you can, if you like it, you can also use it. You can get a license for that, but you're perfectly fine to stay with free. That's also sufficient. Can I add image to the navbar background? Marcus, yes, you can, but to be honest, don't do it. I mean, most often it doesn't look good. I mean, usually we should avoid mixing like the images and the text, because image has a different kind of structures usually. So you have like lighter and darker parts. So it will be very difficult for you, especially for the especially in a case when you have some dynamic text which is generated, so it's gonna be difficult to adjust the color to make it readable. So I would strongly avoid it, but technically yes, you can use picture as a background, right? Don, are you using extension for VS Code? Like when you write container and get the while code, is that emmet? Yep. That's built in. Actually, I think that this comes with the emmet comes with the VS Code itself. So what we are talking about is that instead of doing like div class container, what I can do, I can just type dot, provide the class name like container, and press tab, and it will do the same. Right. So I think there are more like more interesting shortcuts like this one, right? So I can create 3 LE elements and just press tab, and it will create for me 3 list items element. I can include some classes and so on and so on. So it's worth to learn this kind of shortcuts, because they will just make your life easier and your development faster. Question from David Morales. They will launch new Basados components in Material Design 2.0. To be honest, I don't know. It's developing. They are still changing. they are releasing new versions, and to be honest, I don't know at the moment. You can check the release plans if there is something like that planned, but I don't know by heart. So unfortunately, I can't help on that. Mark Steven, to add Mark's question, in SVG file in navbar possible that will work well. Yeah, I mean basically. Basically, you can use SVG pretty much the same way you are using an image, right? You might need to adjust some styles because, for example, by default, Bootstrap will expect and style images, but technically, it's fully possible. So no issue there. Okay, guys, I don't see more questions. So if you didn't manage to ask something or you forgot and you're gonna remind yourself after this webinar, please again remember that this Facebook group is there to help you. So you can simply reach us there. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to personally approach me. So you can find me on Facebook and you can find me on Twitter. So you can just add me, friend me, and just if I only will be able to help you, I will be happy to do so. Thanks again, guys. It was a pleasure for me to stay with you 2 hours. I was really enjoyed and I really like how many questions you guys had. I hope that now you feel that Bootstrap is really powerful tool, and I hope that everything is clear for you. And I hope you're gonna stay with us for the next with the next webinars, because we're gonna go through the whole developer roadmap for you, so you can become a real web developers covering front and the back part of developments. Thank you, guys, and see you next week, same time, same place. Take care and stay safe.